Naomi Brooks called me at 5:23 inches the morning from a parking lot 20 miles away from her home. She had just finished a 12-hour shift at St. Helena Medical Center. She was still wearing navy scrubs under a gray coat, still carrying the insulated lunch bag she had packed the night before, and still trying to understand how her car had vanished from the parking space that belonged to her. "I parked in space 47, she said when I answered. "My number is on the deed paperwork." "Anna, it has always been space 47. "Where's your car now?" "A tow yard in Santa Ana." "Did they tell you why it was towed?" "They said it was an HOA authorization." "Did they give you the authorization?" "No. They said I need to talk to the property manager." She paused. Then she said the part that made me sit up in bed. "The tow company wants $612 to release it." Naomi had lived at Vista Arroyo condominiums for 6 years. The complex sat near the edge of a quiet suburban neighborhood in Irvine, built around landscaped walkways, low stucco buildings, and a large shared parking court behind the units. It was the kind of place where every parking space mattered. The buildings had been designed in the late 1990s, when developers assumed that most households would own 2 cars and visitors would somehow find a place to disappear after dark. There were covered spaces, open spaces, guest spaces, contractor spaces, and a few curbside spots that always became arguments after sunset. Naomi's unit came with 1 covered assigned space and 1 uncovered assigned space. Space 47 was her uncovered space. Her purchase agreement listed it. Her escrow paperwork listed it. The original parking schedule attached to the condominium plan listed it. She had parked there through heat waves, rainstorms, family visits, overnight shifts, and the worst of the pandemic. Nobody had ever questioned it. Until that Tuesday morning. I met her at the tow yard just after sunrise. The place sat behind a chain-link fence beside an auto repair warehouse, surrounded by rows of cars that had been taken from people at their worst possible moments. A father with a toddler on his hip stood at the office window arguing over a release fee. A woman in a restaurant uniform searched through her purse for a credit card, somewhere behind the fence. A car alarm chirped every 30 seconds. Naomi's Toyota Camry sat in the second row. The rear bumper was scraped, not badly enough to make the car undrivable, but badly enough that she noticed it immediately. "They did that," she said. "Take pictures first." I told her. She photographed the bumper, the tow hooks, the odometer, the tires, the inside of the windshield, and the bright orange towing notice placed on the dashboard. The notice was signed by a company called Horizon Community Management. Reason for tow: unauthorized vehicle in reassigned resident space. I read it again. Reassigned resident space. That was a strange phrase. Not incorrectly parked, not blocking access, not abandoned. Reassigned? "Did you get any notice that your space changed?" I asked. "No." "Email?" "No." "Letter?" "No." "Text message?" "No." "Anything posted on the building?" "There was a flyer about a parking update. I thought it was for visitor spots." "Do you still have it?" I took a picture because the paper was taped crooked on the mailroom door. She pulled up the image on her phone. The flyer was dated 9 days earlier. It said Vista Arroyo was implementing a revised resident parking plan to improve traffic flow, accommodate maintenance needs, and ensure fair access for all residents. There was no attached map. There was no list of space changes. There was no mention of Naomi's unit. At the bottom, in small type, the flyer instructed homeowners to contact the management office for updated parking assignments. "That is not notice." I said, "What is it?" "A warning that someone hopes nobody reads the details." The tow yard clerk called Naomi's name. He was a young man with a tired face and a lanyard around his neck. He slid a release form beneath the glass window. $612, he said. Naomi stared at him. "I was parked in my own space." "I don't decide that," he replied. "We got a signed authorization." "Can I see it?" He shook his head. "You can request it from management." "Can you tell me who signed it?" He checked his screen. Horizon Community Management. Authorized by K. Mercer. I wrote the name down. Cara Mercer was Vista Arroyo's property manager. Naomi paid the fee. I wanted her car released first. There would be time to fight over the money later. A tow company has leverage as long as it has your keys behind a counter and your vehicle behind a fence. When she signed the receipt, I read every line. The company had charged a base tow fee, an after-hours release fee, a storage fee, an administrative fee, and a gate access fee. The car had been removed at 2:18 a.m. Naomi's shift ended at 5, which meant the tow truck had taken her car while she was inside a hospital, helping people through the worst night of their lives. As we drove back to Vista Arroyo, she told me what had happened the evening before. She had parked at 6:37 p.m., walked across the courtyard, and started her shift at 7. Around midnight, she checked her phone during a break and saw 2 missed calls from a number she did not recognize. Then came a voicemail. "Hi, this is Cara Mercer from Horizon Community Management. Your vehicle is currently parked in an unauthorized space under the updated Vista Arroyo parking schedule. Please move it immediately to prevent enforcement action." Naomi had listened to the message at 12:14 a.m. She had been on a medication round and could not leave the hospital. She called the number back twice. No answer. At doi obsprezicie. Her car was gone. She knew I was working. Naomi said, "How? My schedule isn't posted anywhere." "Did you tell her you work nights?" "Everyone knows I work nights. I've lived there for years." That was enough. Cara did not need Naomi's exact schedule. She only needed to know that a night shift nurse would not be able to run home at midnight to move a car. We parked near Building C just after 8. Space 47 sat empty under the hard morning light. A fresh white number had been painted at the edge of the stall. The old painted number was still faintly visible beneath it. Someone had changed the marking. The new number was 12. I crouched beside the curb stop. The paint was barely dry. Naomi looked down at it. "That was 47. "I believe you. They painted over it." "I know." Her assigned covered space was still marked with her unit number, but space 47 had clearly been reassigned. A small laminated sign had been attached to the carport post behind it. Unit 12, reserved parking. Unit 12 belonged to a man named Trevor Wallace. Naomi did not know him well, but she knew enough. Trevor had bought the unit 2 years earlier and almost never lived there. The condo was listed repeatedly on short-term rental sites, though the HOA rules prohibited rentals under 30 days. Neighbors had complained about rolling suitcases, unfamiliar cars, weekend parties, and guests who treated the courtyard like a hotel lobby. Naomi had complained too. Not loudly, not publicly. She had sent 2 emails to management after visitors from Unit 12 blocked the fire lane during a holiday weekend. Cara had replied that the matter was under review. Nothing changed. I walked to the mailroom. The crooked parking flyer was still taped to the glass door, now sun-bleached around the edges. Beneath it, someone had added a smaller notice. Updated parking map available in management portal. I logged into the portal using Naomi's homeowner credentials. The updated map had been uploaded at 1:46 a.m., 28 minutes before her car was towed. I opened it. At first glance, it looked official. Same complex layout, same building labels, same rows of covered and uncovered spaces. But the quality was poor. Some stall numbers were darker than others. A few lines did not align correctly. The font used for the revised spaces looked different from the original numbering. Space 47 was now labeled Unit 12. Naomi's Unit 8 no longer had an uncovered assigned space at all. Instead, near the far edge of the property, the map showed an open stall marked Unit 8 Space 91. Space 91 was not near her building. It sat beside the commercial access lane behind the trash enclosure, almost a 5-minute walk from her front door. More importantly, Space 91 did not exist. Not as an assigned space. Not in the current lot layout. It was a painted guest space beside an ADA access route. "This is fake," Naomi said. "Maybe. I replied, but we're not going to call it fake until we can prove exactly when it changed and who changed it. I downloaded the map, then I checked the document properties. Most people never look there. They open a PDF, read the words, and assume the file tells the same story as the paper. But documents have histories. The parking map had been created in 2017. It had been modified at 11:53 p.m. The previous night, the author field listed K. Mercer. I looked at Naomi. Did Kara ever send the board a proposed reassignment plan? Not that I know of. Did the board vote on it? She said in the voicemail it was an updated schedule. That wasn't my question. Naomi shook her head. No. There was no meeting. The HOA was required to keep meeting records and provide notice of board action. It could regulate parking. It could update enforcement procedures, but reassignment of deeded or exclusive use spaces was not something a manager could simply invent at midnight because one owner wanted a better place for rental guests. I requested the association's parking rule, the current master parking schedule, the most recent board meeting minutes, and all notices related to the revised plan. Kara answered my request at 10:16 a.m. Her email was polished and dismissive. She wrote that the association had rebalanced certain parking allocations following resident concerns. She said Naomi's vehicle had been lawfully removed from a newly assigned space after she failed to comply with the emergency notification. Then she added one sentence that I knew would become important. The revised parking plan was reviewed and approved by the board. I replied with one question. Please provide the date of the meeting, the vote count, and the board minutes approving the reassignment of space 47 from Unit 8 to Unit 12. Kara did not answer. Instead, she sent Naomi another email 30 minutes later. It stated that Naomi's vehicle would be subject to future towing if she returned to space 47. Naomi read it on her phone in the middle of her living room. She had not slept since the night before. Her eyes were red. Her car was back, but it was scraped, and she was out $612. Her assigned parking space had been erased with a coat of white paint, and the manager who caused it was warning her not to come home to the place she had paid for. Where am I supposed to park tonight? She asked. I looked at the fake map again. Then I looked out the window toward space 47. A black SUV had just pulled into it. The driver got out carrying 2 rolling suitcases. He was not Trevor Wallace. He was not a resident. And taped inside the windshield of the SUV was a printed card that said, Unit 12 guest. That was when I stopped looking at Naomi's tow as a single bad decision. Someone had not reassigned a parking space. Someone had built an entire system around taking resident spaces and turning them into private amenities for short-term renters. The black SUV stayed in space 47 for less than an hour. At Noah, un sprezece. The man with the suitcases returned to it with a woman and 2 children. They loaded beach bags into the back, took a few photos of the courtyard, and drove toward the main exit. They were not residents. They were vacation guests. Naomi watched them leave from behind the blinds in her living room. They towed me so somebody going to Disneyland could park closer to the building. She said. Maybe. I said. She looked at me. Maybe? We know Unit 12's guests used your space. We still need to prove who authorized that arrangement and whether it happened to other people. By then, I had learned not to treat a visible injustice as the whole story. A single tow could be a bad judgment call. A changed map could be sloppy administration, but a map edited at 11:53 p.m. uploaded less than 30 minutes before a resident's vehicle was removed, and used to benefit a unit known for short-term rentals? That was not sloppy. That was organized. I asked Naomi to rest. She resisted at first. Nurses are used to working through exhaustion. They convince themselves that there will be time to sleep after the next shift, after the next patient, after the next emergency. But this was not a night she needed to spend refreshing emails from the HOA. Go shower. I told her. Put your phone on loud. I'll call if anything changes. What are you going to do? Find the original map. The original parking map was not in the HOA portal. That did not surprise me. It was in Naomi's escrow file. When someone buys a condominium, they receive more paperwork than most people ever want to read. There are title reports, disclosures, CC&Rs, condominium plans, insurance summaries, budgets, reserve studies, architectural rules, parking schedules, and documents that seem meaningless until one day they become the most important papers in the room. Naomi had kept hers. At 11:30 that morning, I sat at her dining table with 3 stacks of documents spread in front of me. The first was her purchase agreement. The second was the title policy. The third was a thick booklet titled Declaration of Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions for Vista Arroyo Condominium Association. In the title policy, Schedule A identified Naomi's unit and her percentage interest in the common area. Then it listed 2 exclusive-use parking spaces, covered parking space C18, uncovered parking space U47. There was no ambiguity. Space 47 was not a courtesy space. It was not a guest space. It was not a convenience the HOA could move around based on traffic flow. It was an exclusive-use common area space assigned to her unit through the condominium plan and acknowledged in her title documents. The HOA still had authority to adopt reasonable rules about how vehicles were used. It could prohibit abandoned cars. It could issue permits. It could regulate guest parking. But it could not permanently transfer Naomi's assigned space to another unit through a midnight PDF edit. I kept reading. The CC&Rs contained a section about parking reallocation. It was buried in Article 7. After several pages about maintenance rights and utility access, exclusive-use parking spaces could be modified only through written consent from the affected homeowner, approval by a supermajority of the board, and a recorded amendment to the condominium parking schedule. That meant Kara's email had already fallen apart. A board review was not enough. A management decision was not enough. Even a unanimous vote would not have been enough without Naomi's written consent and a recorded amendment. And Naomi had never signed anything. I called her escrow company and requested the final condominium plan recorded with the county. The closing officer located it within an hour. The plan was 26 years old. The ink was faded. The lot lines looked uneven. But space U47 appeared beside building C, exactly where Naomi had parked every day for 6 years. It was assigned to Unit 8, Naomi's unit. I printed the page in color, circled the stall, and placed it next to Kara's revised map. The difference was almost insulting. The official plan used clear survey-style labels and measured dimensions. Kara's map was a marketing-style site graphic with numbers typed over the top. One was a legal record. The other was a picture someone had modified after midnight. Atuna, Chasse, M. I received a call from Linda Alvarez. Linda lived in Building A. She had gotten my name from Naomi after seeing the tow truck take Naomi's car. She sounded hesitant at first. "I don't know if this is connected," she said, "but my husband's truck was towed last month." "From an assigned space?" "Yes. He was parked in 23. "Is space 23 assigned to your unit?" "It always was." "Did management give you a reason?" "They said it had been redesignated for a maintenance vendor." "Did you get the truck back?" "We paid $488. "Do you still have the receipt?" "Yes." "Do you still have the notice?" "Yes." "Do you have your closing documents?" A pause. Then Linda said, "Why do I feel like you already know the answer?" "Because I think Naomi may not be the only person this happened to." By the end of the afternoon, I had spoken with 4 more homeowners. A retired airline mechanic named Paul had lost his covered space for 2 weeks after management labeled it temporary contractor access. A single mother named Melissa had received a warning sticker for parking in the spot, listed on her own purchase paperwork. An older couple, the Whitmans, had stopped using their second space entirely after a rental guest from Unit 12 repeatedly left threatening notes on their windshield. Every story sounded slightly different. Different spaces. Different explanations, different fees. But the pattern was the same. The people losing spaces were long-term residents. The people gaining them were short-term rental units, visiting guests, and maintenance vendors connected to owners who did not live at Vista Arroyo. I made a spreadsheet. Column 1, original assigned space. Column 2, what the current map showed. Column 3, tow or warning date. Column 4, stated reason. Column 5, whether a short-term rental unit benefited. B5, 0, pool. M. The pattern was clear enough to make my stomach turn. In 3 months, 9 original resident spaces had been altered on the revised map. 6 of those spaces now appeared to belong to units with documented short-term rental activity. 4 residents had been towed. 2 had paid fees and never challenged them. 1 had given up using her assigned space because she could not risk being towed again. And all of the changes had been made through revised parking maps, uploaded to the management portal. Not one recorded amendment existed in the county records. That evening, Kara sent Naomi a third email. This one was more aggressive. She claimed that Naomi's continued refusal to comply with the updated resident allocation system could result in disciplinary action, including fines of $100 per day. She also wrote that any further contact with other residents about parking assignments might be treated as interference with association operations. Naomi read the message and laughed once. It was not a happy laugh. She's threatening to fine me for telling people where they're allowed to park. She's worried people are comparing documents. I said, "What do we do now? We give her the chance she should have given you." The next morning, I sent a formal records request to the HOA board, not just Kara. I copied the president, vice president, treasurer, secretary, architectural committee chair, and the association's legal contact. I requested the following: all board minutes, ballots, resolutions, or written consents approving the revised parking plan, all recorded amendments affecting exclusive use parking spaces, all towing authorizations issued during the previous 6 months, all contracts between Vista Arroyo HOA, Horizon Community Management, and the towing company, all communications related to temporary parking assigned to maintenance vendors, rental guests, or non-resident occupants, and all invoices or payments received from towing activity. I gave the board 10 business days to respond. Then I attached the recorded parking plan showing space U47 assigned to Naomi's unit. At the bottom, I wrote, "Please also confirm whether the association believes a property manager may reassign an owner's exclusive use parking space without the owner's written consent or a recorded amendment." The board president responded 20 minutes later. His name was Gordon Lyle. Until then, he had been quiet. His email had the careful tone of a man who had been told there was a problem but had not expected the problem to arrive with supporting documents. He wrote that the board was reviewing the matter and that all enforcement activity related to Naomi's space would be paused. That was the first real concession, but it was not enough. Naomi had already lost sleep, money, and use of her property. Other residents had paid towing fees, and a management company had apparently used altered maps to rearrange the parking lot for the benefit of people who were not even supposed to be there. I called Horizon Towing. The dispatcher transferred me to an operations supervisor named Robert Shaw. I told him I was reviewing several HOA-authorized tows at Vista Arroyo and asked whether his company kept copies of the authorizations. "We do," he said. "Can residents request them?" "Usually, management handles that." "Can the company provide invoices, timestamps, and authorization logs after a formal dispute?" "Yes." "Did Horizon receive a monthly parking map from Vista Arroyo?" There was a pause. "We receive what the property manager provides." "Was the map changed recently?" "I can't discuss client operations." "I'm not asking you to. I'm asking whether your drivers were given a revised map." Another pause. Then he said, "They were." "When?" "Late last week." "Before or after Naomi Brooks's car was towed?" He did not answer. I thanked him and ended the call. The timing mattered. Naomi's vehicle had been removed at 2:18 a.m. The map had been uploaded to the homeowner portal at 1:46 a.m. But if Horizon received its map even earlier, then Kara had prepared the towing list before notifying the residents. In other words, The warning call at midnight had never been a real chance to comply. It had been a paper trail. A way for Kara to say Naomi had been warned before her car was taken. That night, Naomi went to work again. She parked nowhere near Space 47. Not because she had given it up, but because we had agreed that one more towing incident would add stress without adding much evidence. She used a visitor space near the front entrance and took photographs of the posted rules before walking to her carpool ride. Atunu, 32 M. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Naomi. A tow truck is here. I called her immediately. Whose car? I don't know. It's near Building A. Can you safely see the license plate? I'm looking through the security camera app. It's Linda's husband's truck. Is he in his assigned space? Yes. Take screenshots. Don't confront anyone. I watched the footage arrive on my phone in short clips. A Horizon tow driver walked to the truck, checked something on a tablet, and began attaching the equipment. Then, from the edge of the frame, Kara Mercer stepped into view. She was standing beside the driver, not checking a map from a distance, not responding to an emergency, standing there at 1:34 inches the morning, personally authorizing another tow from a space that belonged to a resident. Kara looked toward the truck. Then she lifted her hand and pointed. The driver continued. That was the moment the parking dispute stopped being a disagreement about maps. It became evidence of a deliberate system, and this time, Kara had placed herself directly inside the proof. I called Linda before the tow truck got her husband's vehicle through the gate. She answered on the fourth ring. Anna, is something wrong? Your husband's truck is being hooked up right now. What? Is he home? Yes. He's asleep. He worked late. Wake him up. Tell him to come outside with his keys, his parking documents, and his phone. Do not argue with the driver. Just record everything. By the time Linda's husband reached the lot, the tow truck had lifted the front wheels off the ground. His name was Victor. He was still wearing the work boots he had fallen asleep in after his warehouse shift. He stood beside the truck in sweatpants, holding the title packet for his condo in one hand and his phone in the other. Kara Mercer was still there. The Horizon tow driver looked uncomfortable the moment Victor appeared. I'm the registered owner. Victor said, this is my assigned parking space. Kara crossed her arms. It is no longer your assigned parking space under the updated allocation plan. Victor held up a page from his purchase documents. Then show me the recorded amendment. Kara did not answer. The driver looked between them. Ma'am, Victor said to Kara, you told him to tow my truck. I want the authorization in writing. You can request that from management during business hours. It is 1:30 in the morning. Then request it tomorrow. Naomi's camera feed showed the entire exchange. From her apartment, she could see the parking court and hear some of the voices through the open window. She had started recording on her phone, too, capturing the moment the tow driver lowered Victor's truck back onto the pavement. He did not do it because Kara changed her mind. He did it because Victor had arrived before the vehicle left the property, produced evidence of his assigned space, and refused to sign anything admitting he had parked improperly. The driver removed the equipment. Kara walked away without saying another word. Eddoy, Chassea, M. She sent Victor an email. It stated that his vehicle had not been towed at this time as a courtesy pending review. That sentence told me everything I needed to know about how she saw the residents. Not as owners, not as people with recorded rights, as people who could be pressured, charged, warned, and made grateful when the pressure was temporarily removed. The next morning, I sent the video to every member of the Vista Arroyo board. I did not add commentary. I attached Victor's original parking assignment from his title documents. I attached the altered parking map. I attached Naomi's revised map metadata, showing Kara's name and the modification time. I attached the tow notice from Naomi's vehicle, the receipt from Linda's husband's previous tow, and a table showing 9 altered resident assignments. Then I wrote, the board previously stated that the revised parking plan had been approved. Please identify the meeting date and vote authorizing the reassignment of exclusive use spaces, including U47 and C23. Please also explain why management personnel were authorizing overnight towing from documented owner-assigned spaces before homeowners received meaningful notice or access to the revised map. The board did not respond that day. Neither did Kara. But at Tiga Daventeen P.M., Gordon Lyle sent a notice to all homeowners announcing an emergency board meeting. The subject line read, Special Session, Parking Enforcement Review. It was scheduled for Thursday evening in the clubhouse. No one in Vista Arroyo had cared about a parking meeting in years. By Thursday, the room was full. Homeowners filled every folding chair. People stood along the walls. Others watched through the open clubhouse doors. There were retirees with folders under their arms, young parents holding toddlers, tenants who had been asked to attend by the owners they rented from, and several residents who had never spoken at a board meeting before. Naomi sat in the front row. She had finished another night shift that morning, but she refused to miss the meeting. Her Camry was parked legally in a guest space near the entrance. She had placed the $612 tow receipt in a plastic sleeve and kept it on her lap. Kara arrived 10 minutes late. She wore a navy blazer, carried a leather laptop bag, and walked in with the calm expression of someone who expected to manage the room the same way she had managed the parking lot. Gordon opened the meeting with a short statement. He said the board had received concerns regarding parking enforcement, towing procedures, and the revised allocation map. He said the board would hear evidence before making any decision. Then he turned to Kara. Mayor, sir, did the board vote to reassign owners exclusive use parking spaces? Kara stood. The board authorized management to improve parking conditions and resolve ongoing congestion issues. That was not the question. Gordon said. The room went quiet. Kara looked down at the papers in front of her. The board authorized management to implement parking adjustments consistent with association needs. Did the board vote to reassign space U47 from Unit 8 to Unit 12? No formal vote was required for operational adjustments. Naomi stood before anyone called her name. My name is Naomi Brooks. I own Unit 8. She held up the original condominium parking schedule. This says space U47 belongs to me. It has belonged to me since I bought my home. I was towed from it while I was working at a hospital. Kara looked at her. Miss Brooks, your space was reassigned due to the revised parking plan. Who approved it? The association. Who approved it? Naomi asked again. Kara did not answer. I stood next. I placed 2 enlarged maps on an easel at the front of the room. The first was the recorded condominium plan. The second was the management map uploaded at 146A M. I highlighted every altered space in yellow. Exclusive. Use parking assignments are part of the property records. I said, they are not guest permits. They are not temporary favors. In the last 3 months, at least 9 resident spaces were reassigned on this management map without recorded amendments and without consent from the affected owners. A woman in the back raised her hand. That happened to me, she said. They told me my spot was for a contractor. Then another resident stood. My daughter paid to get her car out last month. A man beside the door said, my guest permit was denied. But Unit 12 has strangers coming in every weekend. The room changed after that. Not louder at first. Clearer. People began comparing dates, space, notices, and tow receipts. One homeowner said he had assumed his tow was his own fault. Another said he had stopped parking in his assigned space because management had threatened him with fines. A woman named Melissa showed the board a photo of a rental guest using her covered space with a printed card that said, premium parking. That phrase caught Gordon's attention. Premium parking? He asked. Melissa handed him the photo. The card was simple. White paper, black print. Unit 12. Premium guest parking space. 34. I had already searched public rental listings for Unit 12. The owner, Trevor Wallace, advertised the condo as a quiet Orange County retreat with reserved on-site parking. His listing showed a photograph of the parking court and promised guests priority space near the unit. The association had rules against short-term rentals, yet somehow, a non-resident owner was advertising parking privileges that belonged to other homeowners. Gordon turned to Kara. Did management authorize premium parking for rental guests? No, she said. Did management know Unit 12 was operating short-term rentals? I was aware there had been concerns. Did you receive money from Trevor Wallace or anyone connected to Unit 12 for parking access? Kara froze. It lasted less than 2 seconds. But everyone saw it. No, she said. Gordon looked at the treasurer. Do we have the management invoices? The treasurer, a soft-spoken accountant named Marisol, opened a binder and began flipping pages. She had received my records request the week before and had apparently started looking through the association's accounts. After a moment, she pulled out 3 invoices. They were from Horizon Community Management's parent company. The invoices listed a monthly service called Supplemental Parking Administration. The charge was $1, $250 per month. The HOA had approved it as part of a management services adjustment, but the supporting documents were missing. There was no board discussion explaining what the service included, no list of resident benefits, no written policy. Then Marisol found something else. A payment ledger attached to the management account. Each time Horizon Tow removed a vehicle from Vista Arroyo, the management company received an $85 enforcement coordination fee. 14 tows in 3 months. 14 phase. Kara had not personally received cash from the tow driver at midnight. The system was more polished than that. The more cars were removed, the more management collected, and every time a resident lost an assigned space, the more useful that space became to a rental unit willing to pay for priority parking. Kara's face had gone pale. Gordon spoke carefully. Ms. Mercer, was this arrangement disclosed to the board? It is an industry-standard administrative structure. Was it disclosed? No, she said. Did you alter the parking map? I updated the map to reflect operational needs. Did you assign resident spaces to rental guests? I assigned temporary access based on utilization. You assigned property rights based on utilization, Naomi said from the front row. Kara looked at her. No, I managed parking. Naomi lifted the tow receipt. You managed to take my car while I was saving someone else's life. No one applauded. That was not the kind of room it had become. But the silence after Naomi spoke was heavier than applause could have been. The board recessed for 15 minutes. When they returned, they issued 4 immediate decisions. All towing at Vista Arroyo was suspended pending a complete review. The revised parking map was withdrawn. Every exclusive use space would revert to the recorded condominium plan unless and until a lawful amendment was completed. And Horizon Community Management was removed as the association's manager effective immediately. Kara gathered her laptop bag without looking at anyone. She walked out through the clubhouse doors and disappeared into the dark parking court she had treated like her private revenue stream. The rest took time. Real justice usually does. The board hired an independent attorney to review the management contract, towing records, and short-term rental violations. Horizon Tow cooperated once it received notice that the authorizations might have been based on altered parking assignments. The company refunded Naomi's $612 fee, paid $840 for the bumper repair, and reimbursed other residents who had been towed from documented assigned spaces. The total refund amount was $4. $976. It was not life-changing money for everyone involved. But it mattered, not because the checks were large, because each one came with an acknowledgement that the resident had never been in the wrong. The board also terminated the parking arrangement with Unit 12. Trevor Wallace was fined for violating the rental rules, ordered to remove the listing, and required to stop advertising reserved guest parking. When he refused, the HOA began formal enforcement. 3 months later, he sold the unit. Vista Arroyo adopted a new policy after that. Any change involving an exclusive use space required written owner consent, a board vote in an open meeting, and a recorded amendment when necessary. Towing required photographs, a time-stamped authorization, and a 24-hour notice, unless there was a genuine safety emergency. No more midnight map edits. No more mysterious reassignments. No more residents waking up to find that someone had painted over a number and decided their home came with less than they had bought. A few weeks later, I met Naomi outside her building after one of her shifts. It was just after dawn again, but this time she was walking toward her car without fear. Space 47 had been repainted with its original number. The fresh white paint stood clean against the dark asphalt. Her Camry was waiting for her exactly where it belonged. She set her lunch bag on the passenger seat, then looked back at the parking space. "I used to think parking was the smallest problem in the world," she said. "It usually is. Not when someone turns it into a test." "No," I said. "Then it becomes about whether you are allowed to keep what is yours." She nodded. "Do you think Kara believed nobody would check?" "I think she believed everyone would check alone." Naomi smiled at that. Then she got into her car and drove home. The lot was quiet behind her. No tow truck. No orange notice. No fake map waiting in the portal. Just a painted number. A recorded assignment. And a space that had finally been returned to the person who owned the right to use it. If your HOA towed your car from the parking space written into your home documents, would you pay the fee and move on or start checking every map they gave you? Share your take in the comments. Subscribe to Anna's Neighborhood Justice for HOA drama, property rights battles, and neighborhood conflicts where the records always reveal the truth.